Namaste friends, Hari Om, and welcome to the second part of the series on the Karnataka Empire, popularly known as the Vijayanagara Empire. So last time we left off around 1020, 1040 with the fall of the last great Shahi kings of Afghanistan. Now we need to fast forward 150 years to around 1170 of the Common Era, and we come to the borders of the Chahamana or the Chauhan kingdom of Samrat Prithviraj. So this Wikipedia map gives a rough idea of the extent of their empire. So they were originally from a place called Shakambari near Ajaymeru, which is Ajmer. And it needs to be remembered that Ajmer was the capital of the Chauhans. So Ajmer was the capital of northern India, you can say, at that point of time. Not complete northern India, the region around Delhi, Punjab, and a little bit of Rajasthan. So it's a popular misconception that Delhi was the capital of Prithviraj. For the Chahamanas, it was Ajmer which was the capital. And what was the character of Samrat Prithviraj? Because we have heard so many things about Samrat Prithviraj, and we blame him no end for letting Ghori go, these many times, and he should have killed him, etc., etc. But what was uh, he like as a ruler? So this is answered in some way by Jayanaka, who was a 12th century scholar from Kashmir, who composed a Sanskrit Mahakavya called Prithviraj Vijayam. And this Mahakavya is actually an eyewitness account of the first battle of Tarain, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So this verse, uh, it says, "Aparadhameva na karoti kaschana kriyate janasya katamasya nigrahaha kalinapya bhinna charanastvanugraham nrupateravapa paripurna padrushaha," which roughly translated means there was no crime in Samrat Prithviraj's kingdom, which means it was a very safe and well governed place. And even in Kali Yuga, where our Sanatan Dharma imagines that in Kali Yuga, the dharma, which is in the form of a bull, is not able to stand on all four legs because adharma or the evil in the world kind of rises. So even in this Kali Yuga, dharma is able to stand on all four legs in Samrat Prithviraj's kingdom. And there's an interesting fact. Uh, the archery expertise of which we have heard so much, especially the Shabda Bhedi skill of Samrat Prithviraj, is attested by a contemporary Muslim author called Hassam Nizami. So he's written a work called Tajul Mathir. I don't think I'm pronouncing it right, it's Persian, which means the crown of glorious deeds. So in this he describes especially the second battle of Tarain and the capture of Ajmer and Delhi and the defeat of Maharaj Jayachandra by Qutbuddin Aibak as well. So Hassam Nizami was in Delhi till around 1220s, and he says that if ever one of his enemies, that is Samrat Prithviraj's enemies, picked up his spear to assault him, at once the arrow from the king's bowstring would dart forth towards his enemy. So he was so fast. And Nizami, like I said, was an eyewitness to the second battle of Tarain. So Tajul Mathir, it's actually very difficult. Even the English translation is quite difficult to read because it's very verbose and it describes hundreds of things. But it's got a good core of historical content. And Nizami is better than most Muslim chroniclers because he doesn't exaggerate the deeds. So he's quite happy that Kafirs or Hindus are getting killed, but he doesn't exaggerate the Muslim deeds, and he also doesn't underplay the bravery of the Hindus. So let's move on to the next slide. So Muizuddin Muhammad ibn Sam, more commonly known as Muhammad Ghori, was from the Ghor province of Afghanistan, but by the time he started launching attacks on Bharat, his power base was in Garjanagar, that is Ghazni, around here. So the map is still incomplete. It's a work in progress, and I started creating this map around 12 years back. My vision was to have a copyright-free map which could be used by everyone with historical places, rivers, and places of Akhanda Bharata. And this is interesting, especially Ghazni being his base, because 150 years previously, Muhammad Ghazni was also launching attacks from Ghazni. And the first major invasion was directed not towards uh, Ajay Meru or Ajmer or anywhere in northern India. It was actually directed towards Gujarat, and the capital of Gujarat was Anahil Pataka, which is modern day Patan. So Gujarat was ruled by the Chaulukyas, who were descendants of the Chalukya kings of Karnataka. And Muhammad Ghori, this is interesting in military terms, he followed a salami slicing strategy, which means he slowly nibbled away the territory of his enemies. And before they realized it, he was actually at their doorstep. And he used every step to build up a beachhead so he would be within striking range of the enemy major cities or capitals. And his route to Gujarat, his first stop was Mulasthana or Multan in 1175 and Uch in 1175. So he captured these places in 1175 from the Karmashians or the Ismailis. And then with using these strategic places in Sindh as a base, he gathered a large force of Turkish mounted archers and a large force of infantry. We can assume it was easily 100,000 mounted archers. And he started his movement towards Gujarat. So in 1178, he first attacked Nadulla or Nadol, which was ruled by the Chahmanas of Kelhana, who were under the Chaulukyas of Gujarat or Lata. And just a small point here that the Chaulukyas of Gujarat and the Chahmanas of Ajmer were actually rival powers. So Nadullah was attacked, it was sacked by the Muslims, and then the main Muslim army moved towards Mount.Abu because near Mount.Abu, uh, if you are familiar with Rajasthan or have been to Mount.Abu, it's actually Mount.Abu is a hill station and it's a very hilly terrain. It's, I think, the Aravalli ranges. So there is a pass which leads from Rajasthan into Gujarat. So once you cross that pass, you will come within striking range of Anahil Pataka or Patan. So they moved towards Arbuda mountain, but at this time Gujarat was in a very critical juncture, or Lata was in a very sensitive juncture, because Mulraj Dvitiya or Balamulraj, the king, was only 3 years old, so he was a minor, and it was his mother Queen Naiki Devi who was actually handling the affairs. So Naiki Devi gathered all her forces, and these included the Chahamanas of Nadullah, and she met them in battle. She met the Muslim army, Ghori's army in battle near Mount.Abu. So the Hindus did a very intelligent thing. They got the Nadullahs of, so the Chahmanas of Nadullah to close the entry to the mountain pass. So once the Muslim army was in the pass, they closed off one end, and at the other end was the Hindu army, the main army of Gujarat. And Queen Naiki Devi, from most accounts, had was completely battle ready with armor, and she sat on a horse with Mula Raja in her lap. And a epic battle was fought. The Muslim host was completely wiped off. And as per Prabandha Chintamani, which is a work written by a Jain Muni, Merutunga, there was unseasonal heavy rain. And this is quite important because Turkic mounted archers used compound bows, so they were famous for using compound bows which had great firing power, and they could fire very accurately while riding on a horse at full speed. In rain, the strings are no longer taut, so you can't fire properly with the same strength, and the laminate of the bows also gets damaged because of the water. So this is a very important, a historical aspect. So the Muslims were completely wiped off, and from a couple of accounts, Ghori barely managed to escape with his life. So he had to be carried either on a stretcher made of spears, or one of his close followers got him on a horse, and they managed to make it back to safety in Ghazni. So this was the great battle, and this was seen as a massive battle because Mulraj didn't live very long. I think he died within a couple of years, so he was very small. And even in later inscriptions, he is referred to as Parabhuta Durjaya Garjana 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 Kadhiraj. Okay, so one who has defeated the king of Garjana. And the Muhammad Ghori was also called as Hamir, or the Muslim Sultan. So he was defeated by Mulraj, and this was very gloriously mentioned in later accounts. Now, whether we like Ghori or hate Ghori, you have to admit that he was a very persistent person and he did not lose sight of his target, which was to establish a beachhead in India from where further expansion could be done. So after the debacle at Mount Abu or Arbuda Parvat, he changed track and focused on breaking through to northern India via the Khyber Pass. Now, to do this, he had to gain control of Punjab. So this part is Punjab, again not clear in the map except Lavapura or Lahore. Now Lavapura was under the remnants of the Ghaznavids or descendants of Muhammad Ghazni, and they were in a very decadent state by this time, so not very powerful. So by 1186, he secured both the Khyber Pass, Lavapura, and large areas of Punjab. And he used this like previously. He used Lahore as a base, and he built up a sufficient force and attacked Sirhind in Punjab, which was in the Chahamana kingdom, which was part of Samrat Prithviraja's kingdom. So this was a wake-up call to the Chahamanas who had been trying to avoid battle with him, major battles at least, because it seems there were many raids by this point of time. And Samrat Prithviraj rode out into battle and met him with a large army. So he had his complete force with him at this point. And Ghori's army was rumored to be very large, upwards of 100,000 mounted archers. But like in 1178 CE, the Muslim host was almost completely destroyed, and Ghori had to flee the battlefield. But he returned in 1192, a year later, with a much larger host. And this time, Samrat Prithviraj's complete army was not there, or he was unprepared, because um, it was lack of preparedness as well, I think, and also kind of inability to see the treacherous tactics of the Muslim attackers. And so there was a massive battle again. It went on from early morning because I think the Muslims broke a truce and they attacked before sunrise. And the battle went on till afternoon, and the Muslims, kind of used some deceptive battlefield tactics. So they pretended that they were retreating, and the Rajput army kind of went after them, or the Hindu army went after them, and then they kind of turned back and hammered the Hindu army and so on. So by late afternoon or evening, the Hindu army was completely defeated, and this is where things get a little bit murky because the popular version of Samrat Prithviraj being blinded and then being taken to Ghazni and killing Ghori with his Shabdabedi skills. So he was a fantastic archer, by the way. Is mostly a fiction from Prithviraj Raso, which was composed around the 16th century, so much later. Now, Hasan Nizami, who is again, like I said, a contemporary, says that Prithviraj was definitely captured and reinstated as a vassal or a feudatory of the Ghoris, but he rebelled soon after and was captured and executed. So another account says that he was captured when fleeing from the battlefield and then executed. But one thing is definite, that Prithviraj's son Govindaraja was established as the ruler of Ajmer in 1192. So an important point again needs to be remembered. Muslims simply did not have the strength to rule everything. So they caused massive destruction, havoc, but they did not have the numbers or the strength to actually put their own people in all places. So like the British, and again this is very interesting. So the Christian British followed a similar strategy. So for the time being, they used to let the existing rulers or small time rajas or whatever kind of exist, and once they had enough strength, they used to depose them and get rid of them, and this is the same thing that happened. So Ajmer was the capital of the Chahamana kingdom, not Delhi. This is a point I'll make again, because all history seems to be Delhi centric, whereas Delhi was not really center of anything at that point of time. And there, as per Nizami, there was ferocious resistance even in Ajmer, and it's almost 6 months or a year later, they actually moved to Delhi, where there was again ferocious fighting. It was a very strongly defended fort, and Qutbuddin Aibak, Ghori's general, he let the commander of Delhi fort, which is known as, I think the fort is now called Rai Pithora, um, remain, because like I said, they did not have the strength or power to actually get rid of everyone and install their own people. So at this point, Ghori kind of exits the picture and he goes back to Ghazni in Afghanistan because there are troubles brewing over there. And I'll cover that in a couple of sentences in the next slide. So from this point on, it is mostly his trusted commander, Qutbuddin Aibak, who kind of takes the reins in India. Okay, so that's an artist's imagining of the Battle of Tarain. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. And there was continuous fighting even after the Hindu debacle at Tarain. And like I said, it was late 1192-93 before Aibak could get their hold on Delhi. Now, the next stage, again, this is a salami striking strategy and the beachhead establishment strategy. So now the beachhead was Delhi and Ajay or Ajmer. And so Ajay was used to launch attacks in the direction of Anahil Pataka, Patan, and Dhillika or Delhi was used to launch attacks in the Doab region, which is modern day Uttar Pradesh. So the first thing Aibak did was to capture Meerut in around 1193. Meerut and Bulandshahr, which is somewhere around here. So I don't know what the ancient name of Bulandshahr is. If somebody knows, please put it in the comments. I'll modify the maps. And then he he gathered a massive force. Uh, so another point, India or Bharat became kind of the gathering place of all these jihadis from Central Asia, Iran, Arabia, because it was money, loot, women. It was literally they were just an army of bandits. So they never had the capability to build anything. Forget things like Qutub Minar or whatever is attributed to them. So all of these were appropriated. And I think Kailaswasi P. Enoch has also propagated the theory of Qutub Minar being a Dhurustham, and I believe it because these people were very good at warfare, but they weren't good at anything else. So coming back to the point, so Meerut and Bulandshahr were used as the base to launch a massive attack on Maharaj Jayachandra's kingdom, which was the Gahadavad kingdom. And Varanasi or Banaras was their capital, and a massive battle was fought in 1194, where again the Hindus lost by whisker because Maharaj Jayachandra was wounded in battle, and I think he died on his elephant or something like that. And then the Hindu army broke, and then the Muslims had a field day. So what happened in Varanasi after that is illustrative of what the Muslim rulers did in all parts of India, right from their inroads in Gandhar or Afghanistan in the early years. So this sentence from a work called Kamilut Tawarik by Ibn Asir describes what Aibak did in Varanasi after Maharaj Jayachandra was killed and the army was defeated. The slaughter of Hindus was immense. None were spared except women and children, and the carnage of men went on till the earth was weary. So women and children were spared because women were turned into sex slaves. Um, so there were mass rapes and then they were sold as slaves and so on. And each Muslim soldier or had two or three Hindu wives. This was how that population propagated in the initial centuries. And the children were in most cases sold as slaves, converted into Muslims, or castrated. And this is again the reason why, from the Islamic period, you see um, massive growth in the population of eunuchs or hijras. And this is covered in, Professor Kishori Saranlal's or K.S. Lal's book. I forgot the name of the book. I'll put it in the links. So this was the beginning of the carnage in India proper, and the thing is, just out of curiosity, so you would ask what happened to Ghori and Ebak. So Ghori actually went through a very bad phase after that. Um, his kingdom was in Afghanistan was pretty much wiped off because he ran foul of some very powerful Central Asian powers. Uh, so he had to flee to Punjab, and in 1206 he was stabbed to death by either Hindu cookers or the Ismailis. So it's kind of not clear who did it because different accounts say that Hindus did it and some accounts say that the Ismailis did it. But in 1206 he was brutally stabbed to death. Aibak lasted for a few years more and he fell from his horse and broke his neck in 1210. But look, we can't really take consolation from these things because the damage was already done. And just a couple of myths I wanted to break that the Muslim armies kind of were so powerful that they ran roughshod over everything. That was not the case. It was really a lot of local collaboration and co-opting local people, using them till their utility was done, and then disposing them off. This strategy has been followed by everyone in India, by the way. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for listening. So in the next part, we'll look at Alauddin Khilji. I call him the Rakshas Kalanemi because that's what his effect was on India proper. And because this series is on Vijayanagar, so we are taking kind of a very quick flying view of what is known as the Delhi Sultanate. I'll do a separate series in detail on each of the sultans, but for the purpose of this series, it will really be a very quick overview. And I would like to thank Appa, which is my father, Professor Yadneshwar Shastri, for the correct pronunciation of the words from Prithviraj Vijayam, because my knowledge of Sanskrit is very rudimentary, so I'm reliant on him to actually tell me what the pronunciation is. So friends, I'll see you next time, and please remember to like, share and subscribe to the video. Thank you very much.